Have you ever wondered why some women are never forgotten? Not for their beauty, not for their words, but for something you can't quite name. A presence, a quiet gravity, a warmth that lingers long after they're gone. Tonight, we'll explore what makes that energy timeless, not as a technique, but as a mirror of the soul. This is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you already are. Feminine energy secrets that make him see you as the only choice. The unconscious language of feminine energy. There are women a man never forgets, not because of beauty or words or charm, but because something about her feels like stillness in a world that never stops. She may not even realize it. Her gestures are quiet, her gaze unhurried. Yet when she enters a room, the air changes. It's as if her very presence speaks a language that cannot be learned, only remembered. Carl Jung once said, "When a man's anima is awakened, he is not falling in love with a woman. He is meeting the forgotten part of his own soul." What we call attraction is often the psyche's secret attempt at reunion. A man may believe he's drawn to her body, her laughter, or her mystery, but beneath it all, something older is stirring. A memory rising from the collective unconscious, the vast ocean of human psychology, where all archetypes sleep and whisper. Feminine energy is that whisper made flesh. It is not a performance, nor a set of gestures to be mastered. It is the invisible current that flows when a woman begins her personal growth journey. The moment she stops chasing, proving, pleasing, and begins listening. Because deep within every woman lies the same sacred polarity Jung described in the Red Book, a dialogue between the conscious and the unconscious, between the known and the mysterious. When she dares to enter that inner landscape, to face her shadow, to sit with her pain, to meet the unloved parts of herself, something shifts. Her energy changes its frequency. Her silence becomes magnetic. Her softness becomes power. And suddenly, without trying, she becomes the mirror that awakens a man's forgotten depths. Human psychology often tries to explain love in measurable terms: hormones, attachment, chemistry. But Carl Jung's philosophy reveals something deeper, that every encounter is symbolic. Each person we meet mirrors the inner archetypes we have yet to integrate. And for men, the woman who truly lingers in their mind is not simply beautiful. She represents the anima, the feminine face of their own soul, a bridge between their intellect and their instinct, their reason and their longing. So when a man cannot forget you, it is rarely about what you said or did. It is because something in you spoke directly to his unconscious, a voice older than language, the same voice that calls him home to himself. In Jung's map of the psyche, feminine energy is not passive. It is the force of becoming. It is the moon that reflects the sun's light back to him, reminding him of the parts he had exiled to survive. In her calmness, he feels his chaos soften. In her presence, he remembers what wholeness feels like. Yet this magnetism cannot be imitated. It arises only when a woman begins to live in dialogue with her own depths, when she no longer fears solitude, silence, or emotion. She becomes both the vessel and the mirror, both the mystery and the meaning. She doesn't do feminine energy, she is it. This is the secret language of attraction that no surface charm can counterfeit. It is what makes a man feel, here, I have found something I could not find anywhere else. Throughout this reflection, we will explore 7 Jungian dimensions of feminine energy not as techniques to attract love, but as doorways to inner healing and individuation, the lifelong work of becoming who you truly are. Because in the end, what makes him see you as the only choice is not how perfectly you fit his desire, but how deeply you embody your own soul. And that is the most irresistible energy of all. Whole presence, the stillness that makes him feel safe. There is a kind of presence that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to fill the silence with words or decorate itself with charm. It simply is. Quiet, grounded, unwavering. And in that stillness, a man feels something he doesn't often feel in his daily life. Safe. He may not understand why. He only knows that when he sits across from her, the noise in his mind begins to slow. The tension in his shoulders softens, and for a brief moment, he feels as if he has come home to something ancient, something real. In human psychology, we talk endlessly about attraction, chemistry, looks, confidence, compatibility. But Carl Gustav Jung would say that true magnetism arises from something deeper than behavior. It is the radiance of the self, the inner center of balance that shines when a person has made peace with their own shadow. When you are fully present, you transmit that peace without a single word. Presence, in Carl Jung's philosophy, is not simply being here. It is the alignment of body, mind, and soul, a harmony that forms when the conscious mind stops chasing validation and begins listening to the quiet rhythm of the unconscious. In that state, you're no longer divided between who you think you should be and who you truly are. You have returned to your own axis, and the energy that emanates from this place, that calm, unforced, grounded awareness, is what makes you unforgettable. Jung wrote in the Red Book, "In the stillness, the self whispers." He meant that the wisdom we seek does not come from effort, but from presence, from the courage to stop performing and simply be. Imagine this. You are sitting in a cafe with a man who has carried the armor of success his whole life. He's used to solving problems, making decisions, performing strength. Yet as he speaks, your eyes don't rush to judge or advise. You're simply there, not analyzing, not waiting for your turn to speak. You listen with the quiet curiosity of someone who sees the soul beneath the words. He feels it instantly, the invisible exhale, the rare experience of not having to prove or protect himself. That moment stays with him, not because you said the right thing, but because for the first time, he could simply exist. This is the secret architecture of feminine energy. It softens what the world hardens. It creates a small sanctuary where a man can meet his own forgotten sensitivity without shame. You become, in Jungian terms, the anima figure, the living symbol of receptivity and wholeness in his collective unconscious. But here is what many women miss. You cannot fake this kind of presence. You can't hold it by pretending to be calm or playing the role of the wise one. Presence comes only from inner healing, from the quiet work of facing yourself. When you have sat with your own loneliness without running, when you've cried your own tears without shame, when you've walked through heartbreak and discovered that you still belong to yourself, something inside you changes. You stop trying to fill silence. You stop performing worth. And that emptiness that once scared you becomes a sacred stillness. The same stillness he feels when he meets your eyes. Every woman who has journeyed into her depths carries that invisible signal. It's not youth or beauty or perfection that makes her magnetic. It's integration. Her light and her shadow are no longer enemies. They sit side by side, breathing together, and that quiet balance awakens a man's deeper archetypes, his longing to protect, to cherish, to rest. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Presence is how you reverse that fate. It's the practice of noticing, moment by moment, where your energy truly is. Is your mind rushing ahead to anticipate his reaction? Are you reliving old wounds from the past? Or are you here, now, listening not just with your ears, but with your whole being? When you anchor yourself in the present, you step into your own center. Your energy stops scattering, and a man, even one unaware of such things, will feel it, because the psyche recognizes safety before the mind does. He may not say it out loud, but something in him will whisper, "I can breathe here." In that moment, you become not just a woman in his story, but a reflection of his self, the still point his restless spirit has been circling around unconsciously. You embody what he cannot name, the quiet assurance that he doesn't have to keep striving to be loved. From the perspective of Carl Jung's archetypes, you have become the self, meeting the hero. You hold the space where his armor melts, not because you fix him, but because you see him. Presence, then, is not passive. It is sacred participation. It is the act of standing so fully in yourself that others begin to remember their own souls in your reflection. If you wish to cultivate this energy, start not with him, but with you. When you drink tea, just drink tea. When you walk, feel the rhythm of your steps. When you listen, do not prepare to respond. Just receive. Each small act of awareness is a thread weaving you back into your center. That is how presence becomes your nature rather than your effort. Over time, this quiet awareness reshapes your entire field. People will say, "There's something peaceful about you." What they're really sensing is that you're not leaking your energy into fear or control. You have come home to yourself. And when a man meets that, the woman who is both grounded and awake, his unconscious recognizes the frequency of wholeness. He may meet many women, but he will not forget the one who made his spirit exhale. Because she didn't try to take his attention, she gave him back his own. That is the power of whole presence. It is not loud, it does not demand, it does not chase. It simply invites. And in that quiet invitation, a man finds not just attraction, but remembrance. A remembrance of peace, of balance, of home. And perhaps that is what Carl Jung truly meant when he wrote that the meeting of two souls is like the meeting of two chemical substances. For if there is any reaction, both are transformed. Presence is that alchemy, the silent moment where two lives dissolve their defenses, and what remains is not performance, but truth. Primal femininity, the river that awakens his soul. If presence is the still lake, calm, reflective, and grounding, then primal femininity is the river that moves through it. It is the current that gives life its pulse, the quiet force that makes everything grow, and yet it never demands to be noticed. Men can sense it, even when they can't name it. It's not the perfume, nor the curve of the body, but something deeper, an aliveness that speaks to the most ancient part of them, the part that remembers the wild before civilization began. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote that deep within every man lives the anima, the inner feminine, the soul image that connects him to feeling, intuition, and mystery. When he meets a woman whose energy mirrors that image, something in his collective unconscious stirs. It's not logic that draws him near, it's memory, memory of wholeness, memory of what it feels like to be alive. That is the essence of primal femininity, not softness as weakness, but softness as force. It's the same power that moves oceans and blooms flowers through stone, quiet yet unstoppable. It's not something you learn, it's something you remember. In the language of Carl Jung philosophy, this is the realm of the instinctual archetypes, the wild woman, the mother, the lover, each carrying a sacred rhythm of nature itself. Before society taught women to be pleasing, productive, or polite, they were born fluent in this rhythm. They cried when they needed to. They laughed without permission. They touched life with their bare hands and trusted their intuition like a compass. But over time, civilization told them to control that flow, to hide the river beneath glass, to be reasonable, calm, in control. And so the river dried on the surface, leaving many women outwardly polished but inwardly parched. They began to speak in the language of performance instead of pull. Yet no matter how long it's been, the river waits beneath. It never disappears. It only sleeps until a woman decides to come back home to herself. When you begin your personal growth journey, when you start listening to your body again, when you stop apologizing for your tears, or the way your heart trembles at beauty, you are reopening that hidden current. You are remembering what Jung called the instinctual self, the bridge between body and soul, between emotion and awareness. To a man, this energy is intoxicating, not because it tries, but because it flows. He feels it in the way you breathe when you're at peace, in the warmth behind your eyes when you're moved, in the way you laugh without shrinking. He cannot explain why he feels drawn to you. He only knows your presence makes him feel, and that is the secret. Men don't fall in love with a woman who performs emotion, but with one who lives it, because through her, he reconnects to his own lost capacity to feel. In human psychology, this is not seduction, it's remembrance. You become a mirror to his inner feminine, and in that mirror, his soul recognizes itself, your intuition, your fluidity, your warmth. These are not traits to attract him. They are symbols from the archetypal world that his unconscious understands. Think of a river again. A river doesn't force its direction. It flows by, knowing when to yield and when to carve stone. Its strength lies in movement, not resistance. That's the nature of your feminine current. When you honor your intuition, even when it makes no sense, when you speak from emotion instead of strategy, when you allow silence to do its own work, you align with the flow of that river, and in your flow, he finds his reflection. There was once a story Jung shared of a dream he had during the writing of the Red Book. He saw a vast river of light running beneath the earth, connecting all living souls through invisible currents. He called it the living psyche. When a woman awakens her primal energy, she taps into that very river, the same current that runs through myth, through art, through love itself. And when a man stands beside her, he feels that river move inside him too. But to awaken it, you must stop fearing your own depth. You must stop trying to stay pleasant. Pleasant women are remembered fondly, but the woman who has presence and pulse is remembered forever. She carries the scent of the earth after rain, raw, real, alive. It takes courage to live this way, to let yourself feel anger without guilt, to let desire rise without shame, to allow sadness to wash through without fixing it. But every time you let a true emotion breathe, you reclaim a piece of your power. The energy that once leaked into repression returns as radiance. That is inner healing in its purest form, not thinking your way out of pain, but feeling your way back to life. A man senses this healing, even if he cannot name it. He finds peace in your storms and truth in your laughter. And because your emotions are no longer chaotic, but honored, he feels safe to open his own. Your authenticity gives him permission to be whole. Carl Jung's archetypes tell us that every relationship is an alchemical process. Each person awakens something dormant in the other. When a man meets a woman who lives from her primal center, she becomes not just a partner, but an initiation. Through her, he meets the anima within, the doorway to his soul, the river that runs beneath all his armor. In this way, your femininity is not merely personal, it's archetypal. You are not just one woman. You are the living symbol of nature's balance, the embodiment of what Jung called eros, the connective principle of life. Through your softness, chaos finds rhythm. Through your intuition, logic learns humility. Through your emotion, the world begins to breathe again. And so, when a man says he cannot forget you, understand that it is not because you are flawless. It is because in you, he met something eternal. He felt the pulse of the river that connects every heart, the whisper of the feminine soul that flows through all creation. And that is why, even if he walks away, a part of him will always look for that current again. Primal femininity does not seek to be desired. It simply desires to be real. It doesn't conquer. It calls. It doesn't chase. It moves. And everything moves with it. As Jung wrote, the anima is not to be possessed, but to be honored. For she is the bridge to life itself. Honor her within you. Let her river move through your words, your silence, your breath. Let her laugh without permission and weep without apology. For it is through this primal aliveness that you become unforgettable, not as an object of longing, but as a mirror of the soul. And when presence, from the first part, meets this primal flow, something alchemical begins to form. The still lake and the moving river merge into one. That is where true magnetism is born, in the union of peace and passion, stillness and motion, light and shadow. The woman who embodies both doesn't compete for attention. She becomes it, and the man who meets her will never again confuse excitement with depth, because in her eyes, he will glimpse eternity. The sacred mystery, the space that keeps desire alive. There is a woman who doesn't explain herself. She doesn't rush to fill the silence or decorate the unknown with answers. She lives with a quiet secret, not because she hides, but because she belongs to depth. To the untrained eye, she may appear distant, but to a man who has begun to awaken, she feels like a door, a passage into something larger than himself. He can't quite name it, but standing before her, his soul senses that he is on sacred ground. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote that the soul's greatest longing is to unite what has been divided. And yet, paradoxically, what awakens that longing is not what we understand, but what we don't. For desire, like consciousness, is born in the tension between knowing and mystery. Too much clarity, and the psyche falls asleep. Too much secrecy, and it turns to fear. But the woman who embodies sacred mystery, she walks the middle path. She is clear enough to feel real, and mysterious enough to remain infinite. In human psychology, we tend to equate love with closeness, as if intimacy were a matter of exposure. But in Carl Jung's philosophy, true intimacy is not found by collapsing the distance. It is found by revering it. The space between two souls is not an obstacle to overcome. It is the sacred vessel that holds the alchemy of attraction. When a man meets a woman who carries this quiet mystery, his mind wants to decode her, but his psyche wants to surrender. He doesn't know why her silence feels like music, why her absence echoes louder than words. He only knows that when she looks away, something inside him leans forward, searching, yearning, remembering. That is because she mirrors the most hidden part of his psyche, the collective unconscious, the vast sea where his unspoken dreams, fears, and forgotten archetypes sleep. To him, she is not merely a woman. She is a symbol, the living reflection of his anima, the mysterious feminine that connects him to his own soul. The unknowable woman is not a riddle to be solved. She is the temple that teaches him how to kneel. Her mystery does not create distance. It creates devotion, because through her, he meets the part of himself that has always been unreachable, the shadowed corridors of longing that no achievement could fill. In Carl Jung's archetypal map, mystery belongs to the feminine principle, the moon rather than the sun, the depth rather than the surface, the silence rather than the declaration. Just as the moon pulls the tides without touching them, a woman rooted in mystery influences not by control, but by presence. She reminds him that not everything in life is meant to be grasped. Some things are meant to be revered. You can see this in nature. The flower never chases the bee. It simply blooms in its own rhythm, and the world rearranges itself around her fragrance. Likewise, when a woman holds mystery, she doesn't need to withhold truth to appear alluring. Her allure lies in wholeness. She knows that the more she explains herself, the more she fractures the sacred space where connection grows. Carl Jung once said that the most intense conflicts, if overcome, leave behind a sense of calm that is not easily disturbed. The same is true for love. When a man cannot fully grasp a woman's inner world, he is invited into the holy conflict of desire, the tension between wanting to know her and realizing that, to love her, he must learn to let her remain partly unknown. This is what keeps the flame alive, the balance between closeness and reverence. Mystery keeps love breathing. It prevents the soul from reducing the sacred to the familiar. In the personal growth journey of a woman, to reclaim her mystery is to reclaim her soul's sovereignty. She no longer gives herself away in every conversation, no longer empties her depths just to be understood. She speaks when it's true, not when it's demanded. She keeps a private garden, thoughts, dreams, rituals that no one enters without earning her trust. And it is precisely that inner sanctuary that draws him near, because men do not fall in love with what they can possess. They fall in love with what they can worship. In the Red Book, Jung described descending into the underworld of his own mind, a landscape filled with symbols he could not rationalize. He said, The soul is not a problem to be solved, but a living mystery to be experienced. The unknowable woman embodies this truth. She is not a puzzle, she is a presence, and to stand before her is to face one's own limits. For a man, this encounter is spiritual. Her mystery awakens his humility, the awareness that he cannot master life through intellect alone, that there are forces, love, grief, beauty, surrender, that must be felt, not controlled. She reminds him that the soul's deepest treasures are revealed only when one stops digging and begins to listen. But here is the paradox. Mystery does not mean hiding. It means allowing depth to exist without rushing to make it visible. It's the soft power of restraint, the trust that what is real will unfold in its own time. Just as the moon reveals herself night by night, so too does the mysterious woman reveal herself through cycles, not performance. To cultivate this energy, you must learn to be at peace with the unknown, within yourself first, to hold silence without fear, to let curiosity replace control, to live as both question and answer. Because only when you can rest in your own depths can another feel drawn into them. And when a man senses this sacred mystery within you, he will never experience you as one of many. He will feel, perhaps for the first time, that he is in the presence of something eternal, something that cannot be rushed or replicated, something that demands his presence rather than his pursuit. For the unknowable woman does not chase love. She calls it forth, not with strategy, but with soul. Her mystery is not the mask of detachment, but the fragrance of depth. It is the energy of a woman who has descended into her own darkness, met her shadows, and returned carrying light that words can't describe. This is what keeps desire alive. Not endless novelty, but reverence. Not games, but gravity. Because love, to stay sacred, must always contain a hint of the infinite. So, let a part of you remain untouched, not because you fear intimacy, but because your soul deserves its own private sky. Let silence live beside your laughter. Let your eyes hint at the oceans you've crossed. Let him feel, when he's with you, that no matter how close he stands, there will always be more to discover. That is how the unknowable woman becomes unforgettable, not through what she reveals, but through what she allows to remain unseen. She doesn't try to be mysterious. She simply lives in communion with mystery itself. And every man who meets her will feel as if he has brushed against the edge of the divine. Authenticity, the unmasking of the soul. Mystery draws a man close. But what makes him stay, what lets love grow roots, is truth. And truth, in its purest form, is not perfection. It is authenticity. It's the trembling voice that says, "I'm afraid." It's the tear that slips out before you can stop it. It's the laugh that escapes louder than you intended. It's the moment you stop performing strength and begin to live your softness without shame. For all of human history, women have been taught to survive through performance, to be pleasing, to be good, to be enough, to wear the right tone, the right smile, to hold it all together so no one sees the storm inside. But Carl Jung, in the Red Book, warned of this danger. The mask of perfection hides the soul from its own depth. He called that mask the persona, the social face we wear to belong, to be accepted, to feel safe. We need it, yes. But when we mistake the mask for who we are, we begin to suffocate beneath its weight. A woman who forgets her authenticity becomes divided. Her soul whispers one thing, but her lips say another. Her energy fractures, and though she may appear composed, she feels a quiet exhaustion that never goes away. The most magnetic women are not those who play roles flawlessly, but those who have outgrown the need to. They no longer chase validation because they have learned to sit in their own presence and say, "This is me, imperfect, evolving, still learning, and still worthy." That is the beginning of inner healing. The moment you choose honesty over image, presence over performance. In human psychology, authenticity is the bridge between connection and wholeness. Without it, love becomes theater. Two masks dancing politely until silence swallows them both. But when a woman dares to unmask, something sacred happens. The man before her senses it instantly. Her energy shifts from rehearsed to real. He feels safe not because she's flawless, but because her soul has texture, warmth, imperfection, life. It's not beauty that disarms him. It's truth. In Carl Jung's philosophy, to be authentic is to step out of the persona and move toward the self, the integrated center that holds both light and shadow. Authenticity is not about choosing light alone. It's about owning the darkness too. It's saying, "These are my fears, these are my wounds, and they too belong." When you allow your vulnerability to be seen, you offer a man something the world rarely gives him: permission. Permission to drop his own mask. Permission to exhale. Because authenticity is contagious. It evokes authenticity in others. And in that moment, the relationship shifts from performance to presence. Think of the last time someone looked at you with unguarded honesty. No pretense, no small talk, no strategy. Just a quiet meeting of truth and truth. Didn't your whole nervous system relax? That's the power of authenticity. It speaks directly to the collective unconscious, where every human being remembers the longing to be seen. Jung believed that what we most hide holds the key to our transformation. The shadow, those traits we reject or fear, contains the raw material of our wholeness. When a woman begins to accept her anger, her jealousy, her longing, her fragility, she doesn't become less radiant. She becomes real. And realness has a gravity that fantasy never could. A man may be drawn to mystery, but he commits to truth. Because deep down, he doesn't want perfection. He wants presence. He wants a woman whose soul he can feel. One who has faced her darkness and returned, like Jung in his Red Book, carrying a light that does not flicker with approval or rejection. Authenticity is that light. It is steady because it is rooted in self-knowledge. It doesn't seek constant reassurance because it knows its source. To live authentically is to live with courage. It means choosing honesty even when it risks rejection. It means saying, "I don't know," instead of pretending certainty. It means crying when your heart breaks instead of smiling through the ache. It means loving without guarantee, because love that demands control is not love. It's fear wearing a disguise. The personal growth journey of authenticity is rarely glamorous. It asks you to shed the identities that once kept you safe: the caretaker, the achiever, the pleaser, the strong one. It asks you to meet yourself naked, not physically, but spiritually, to witness your own truth without running. And as you do, the mask falls away. What's left is not less. It's more. More quiet power, more emotional clarity, more freedom to love without losing yourself. A man feels this difference immediately. The woman who has come home to her truth does not need to convince him of her worth. Her energy speaks for her. Her no is gentle but firm. Her yes comes from the whole of her being. And because she stands in her truth, he begins to see her not as an extension of his desire, but as a mirror of his own soul's integrity. Carl Jung's archetypes describe this as the shift from the lover to the queen. The lover seeks to be adored. The queen simply is, sovereign, authentic, whole. She does not chase the throne. She embodies it. And in her quiet sovereignty, she evokes devotion, not dependency. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Most people quote it as inspiration, but in truth, it is a summons, a call to leave behind every false identity and step into the unguarded truth of your own soul. Authenticity is not the end of your mystery. It is its deepest expression. Because when you are fully yourself, you are still infinite. But now, you are real. This is the paradox of feminine energy in its highest form. It reveals and conceals at once. It shows you enough truth to feel safe and holds enough mystery to keep the soul awake. It invites love not by needing it, but by meeting it with wholeness. A man cannot truly meet you until you have met yourself. When you know who you are beneath the mask, you no longer beg to be chosen. You choose with clarity. You become, in Jung's terms, an individuated soul, a woman who has walked through the fire of self-recognition and emerged unburned, yet illuminated. That is why authenticity is the unmasking of the soul, not a loss of magic, but the moment magic becomes true. It's when love stops being a stage and turns into sanctuary. And when he looks at you, the woman who is both mystery and truth, both river and ground, he feels something rare, not excitement, not possession, but peace. Because in your authenticity, he meets his own. The dance of giving and holding, the balance between fire and stillness. Love, at its core, is not a constant blaze. It is a dance, a rhythm of offering and receiving, of movement and rest, the fire that burns and the stillness that holds it. Every relationship that endures eventually learns this sacred choreography, the art of balancing, giving and keeping. In Carl Jung's philosophy, this is the eternal dialogue between opposites, the masculine and the feminine, the sun and the moon, the arrow and the chalice. He called their union heroes, gamos, the sacred marriage within the psyche. It is not a romance of bodies, but of energies. For when the inner masculine and feminine finally begin to dance in harmony, love ceases to be a battlefield. It becomes an act of creation. The masculine, by nature, is movement, fire, direction, purpose. It seeks to penetrate, to build, to define. It is the sword that cuts through chaos to bring order. The feminine, by essence, is stillness, water, receptivity, intuition. It holds space for life to unfold. It is the chalice that receives without losing form. Both are sacred. Both are incomplete without the other. But somewhere along the way, the dance lost its rhythm. In a world that celebrates independence and control, many women learned to embody the fire, to do, to prove, to lead. They became the sun in every room, but quietly forgot how to rest in the moonlight of their being. And men, growing up in systems that feared vulnerability, learned to build walls instead of bridges, mistaking power for presence. The result? A generation of souls aching for balance, yearning to give and receive in equal measure, but not knowing how. Carl Gustav Jung believed that wholeness comes not from perfection, but from the reconciliation of opposites. The dance between masculine and feminine energy, both within and between us, is not about dominance or submission. It's about complementarity. A man's fire expands through purpose. A woman's stillness deepens through presence. When they meet in awareness, a new world is born between them. You can see this in small things. When a man fixes something in the home and you thank him softly, you're not indulging in ego. You're honoring his archetype of the protector. When you let him carry the heavy bags, you're not being weak. You're giving his strength somewhere to land. And when he listens to your feelings without trying to solve them, he's honoring the nurturer within himself, the part of the masculine that learns to hold rather than control. This is not manipulation. It is human psychology at its most sacred, because in truth, every man wants to feel needed, and every woman wants to feel safe. When those desires meet consciously, they become devotion rather than dependency. A woman who knows when to give and when to keep understands energy like a musician understands silence. She knows that love loses its melody when every space is filled with sound. To give endlessly, to always nurture, always offer, is to burn out her own light. To hold back too tightly is to let connection starve. But the woman who moves like water, sometimes flowing, sometimes still, becomes the rhythm itself. Her energy teaches him how to love by example, not through instruction, but through vibration. In Carl Jung's archetypes, this balance appears as the king and the queen. The king rules through structure, the queen reigns through presence. He provides form, she provides life. He brings stability, she brings soul. Together, they form the vessel through which love can endure. But without the queen's stillness, the king's fire becomes tyranny. And without the king's fire, the queen's stillness turns to stagnation. That is why sacred reciprocity is not an act. It is a state of being. It begins when you stop trying to control love and start participating in its rhythm. When you let him take initiative without rushing to rescue. When you let yourself receive without guilt. When you trust that allowing space for his giving is not weakness, it is wisdom. A man, in his essence, longs to offer, to give his time, his care, his protection, his devotion, but he cannot give if the woman gives everything first. When she fills every silence, handles every detail, solves every problem, his archetypal fire has nowhere to burn. He may admire her competence, but he will not feel needed, and eventually he will drift into the cold space of emotional redundancy. Yet when she pauses, when she trusts the dance, when she allows him to step forward, something ancient within him awakens. He feels his purpose again. He feels alive. Not because she diminished herself, but because she made room for him to rise. And in return, her receptivity nourishes her soul. She learns that softness is not surrender. It is strength of another kind, the strength to hold instead of to force, to be rather than to prove, to receive love not as a reward, but as a reflection of her own openness. This is how polarity becomes sacred, not a game of power, but a language of trust. When giving and holding intertwine, love begins to breathe again. Each gesture feeds the other. Each silence becomes communion. In this sacred balance, both are transformed. He becomes steadier, less reactive, more grounded in purpose. She becomes lighter, more radiant, more at peace in her being. Together, they create a field of wholeness, a living embodiment of Jung's alchemical union, where fire and stillness no longer oppose but complete each other. To live this way requires awareness. It asks you to notice when your giving comes from love, and when it comes from a fear of being forgotten, of not doing enough, of losing control. It asks you to know when to open your palms and when to rest them over your heart. Because love that lasts is not made of endless motion, but of mindful rhythm. In the end, this is not about what you do, but what you embody. You are both the dancer and the dance, the water that cools the flame that warms the water. You are the breath between giving and holding, the pulse between doing and being. And when a man meets a woman who moves with this rhythm, who knows when to step forward and when to lean back, when to open and when to pause, he feels not only love, but meaning, because in her, he rediscovers the balance his soul has been missing. Carl Jung once wrote, "The tension of opposites is the birthplace of consciousness. When love holds that tension with reverence, it ceases to be possession and becomes prayer. It becomes the sacred dance of two energies learning to move as one. Fire that does not burn, stillness that does not freeze. A rhythm that keeps both alive. And that is the secret every conscious relationship must learn. The balance between giving and keeping, between doing and being, between the masculine's drive to offer and the feminine's grace to receive. Because when those forces meet, not in struggle, but in surrender, love no longer consumes, it creates." Healing energy, the light that softens his shadow. Not all wounds bleed where eyes can see. Some hide behind silence, beneath control. Inside the armor men are taught to wear since boyhood. He learns early, be strong, don't cry, don't need. And so, piece by piece, he builds a fortress, a wall made of logic, sarcasm, and achievement. The world rewards the wall, but inside, the boy, tender, confused, and aching to be seen, remains locked away, waiting. Every man carries this hidden child somewhere in the collective unconscious, and every woman who loves a man has felt his presence, not in what he says, but in the spaces between his words, in the sigh that escapes after success, in the anger that appears when tenderness knocks too close. That is his shadow, not evil, not broken, but the unlived, unaccepted part of himself that longs to come home. Carl Gustav Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining the figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Healing, then, is not about fixing the man before you. It is about seeing him without judgment and allowing that seeing to become light. A woman's healing energy is not an action, it is a presence. She doesn't tear down his walls, she simply stops trying to climb them. She stands quietly at their base, her light steady, her eyes unafraid. And over time, he feels something he hasn't felt in years, safe enough to open the gate himself. In human psychology, this is the subtle art of co-regulation, where one nervous system reminds another how to breathe. But in Carl Jung's philosophy, it is more than physiology, it is soul alchemy. Through her presence, she becomes a mirror for his shadow, reflecting not condemnation, but compassion. She does not say, "You need to change." Her stillness says, "You are allowed to exist." And that permission, that quiet acceptance, becomes the space where his unconscious begins to thaw. There is a story Jung told in the Red Book. He met a figure named Salome, blind, dark, mysterious. At first, he feared her. She represented all he repressed, his emotional, irrational, chaotic feminine. But when he stopped running from her, he realized she was not his enemy. She was his soul. To love her was to reclaim himself. Every man must one day meet his own Salome. And often, it is through a woman's presence that she is awakened, not because she heals him, but because she mirrors what he can no longer hide. Her gentleness reveals where his hardness cracks. Her calm draws attention to the noise inside him. Her openness exposes how closed he has become. And when he finally breaks, it's not from her pressure, but from her patience. Carl Jung's archetypes teach that the feminine principle is not passive, it is receptive, the container in which transformation occurs. The masculine pushes forward, the feminine holds. Her healing energy is not to rescue, but to contain the storm until it learns its own rhythm again. A woman who tries to save a man will drown with him, but a woman who stands in compassion without collapsing into pity becomes the shore he can return to after the tide of his pain recedes. She does not dive into his darkness to prove her love. She lights a lamp and says, "When you're ready, this is the way home." Healing energy is not about always being calm, gentle, or endlessly forgiving. It is about being real, clear, steady, alive. A woman who has done her inner healing knows the difference between empathy and self-erasure. She can hold another's pain without mistaking it for her own. She has touched her own darkness and lived to tell the story, and that gives her a gravity no words can teach. When such a woman meets a wounded man, her energy doesn't chase or fix. It simply invites. She knows the language of silence, how to reach through the spaces between words, how to listen to the voice beneath the defense. And when he finally lets the mask slip, even for a moment, she meets him not with shock, but with knowing. That look of, "I've been there too." And in that instant, something ancient shifts. The boy inside him begins to trust again. This is not romance, it's recognition. The collective unconscious remembers what it feels like when the masculine and feminine meet in truth, not to complete each other, but to remind each other of wholeness. He learns that vulnerability is not weakness, and she learns that compassion does not mean sacrifice. Each grows stronger through the reflection of the other. Healing in love, then, is not a miracle. It's a mirror. You cannot make someone face what they refuse to see, but you can embody what it feels like to live unafraid of your own depths, and that, in time, invites them to meet theirs. To cultivate this healing energy, start not by asking, "How can I help him?" but, "Can I stay present with my own pain without running?" Because the more you can sit with your own shadow, the less you will fear his. Your presence becomes medicine, precisely because it is not trying to cure. There is a quiet power in simply being the one who doesn't flinch. When he shows anger, you see the fear beneath it. When he withdraws, you sense the shame hiding there. You don't excuse it, but you understand it. You set boundaries gently, without closing your heart. And that rare combination, clarity and compassion, is what teaches him that love can exist without control. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. When a man meets a woman who carries healing energy, the reaction is inevitable, not because she gives him her strength, but because her strength reminds him of his own. She holds space until he can hold it himself. That is sacred reciprocity, not saving, but witnessing, not doing, but being. And yet, this kind of presence is impossible unless she has first met her own shadow, because until you have faced your pain, you will try to fix it in others. Until you have forgiven your own imperfections, you will demand perfection from love. Healing begins the moment you realize that wholeness is not something you give to another. It is something your being silently transmits. When a man finally feels this, the warmth that doesn't demand, the softness that doesn't break, he realizes he has found something the world never taught him to seek. A love that doesn't save, but sees, and that changes everything, because to be seen without being judged is the beginning of redemption. Not the redemption of sin, but the redemption of the forgotten self. In that reflection, he begins to soften, and in that softening, you both begin to heal. Wholeness, the feminine soul in union with itself. There comes a moment in every woman's journey when she stops reaching outward and begins to turn inward, not in isolation, but in remembrance for everything she once sought: love, safety, validation, peace, was never truly lost. It was simply waiting for her within. This moment, quiet and unannounced, is the birth of wholeness. Carl Gustav Jung called it the process of individuation, the lifelong work of integrating all that we are: light and shadow, strength and softness, chaos and calm. He wrote in the Red Book, "The self is not born by fleeing from the opposites, but by reconciling them." Wholeness is not perfection. It is the soft acceptance of imperfection. It is when a woman no longer needs to prove her worth because she has met the parts of herself she once abandoned. It is when she no longer confuses solitude with loneliness because she has discovered the sanctuary within her own soul. In human psychology, wholeness is the final stage of the personal growth journey, the moment when the external search gives way to inner stillness. But in Carl Jung's philosophy, it is something far more sacred: the reunion of the feminine soul with her own divine center, the self. Throughout her life, a woman is taught to fragment herself, to be desirable, but not too deep, to be nurturing, but not needy, to be successful, but never intimidating. She learns to divide her being into compartments: one for work, one for love, one for family, until she forgets that all these fragments once belonged to the same flame. The journey to wholeness begins when she gathers them back: the ambitious self, the tired self, the wounded self, the wild self, and says to each, "You are allowed." It is this act of radical inclusion that transforms the woman from seeker into source. No longer does she wait to be chosen, for she has chosen herself. No longer does she ask, "Will he stay?" For she knows that she will. She has become the constant she was searching for, the calm beneath every storm. When a woman lives from this wholeness, her energy changes everything around her. It doesn't shout, it settles. It doesn't seduce, it summons. People sense it the way they sense the ocean before seeing it: the quiet gravity of something vast, alive, and unafraid. In Carl Jung's archetypes, this is the emergence of the self, the union of all opposites, the moment when the inner queen and the inner child, the lover and the sage, the mother and the wild woman, stand side by side without conflict. Her inner court has found harmony. Her kingdom is no longer ruled by fear or desire, but by awareness. And from that awareness, love becomes something entirely new. She no longer enters relationships seeking completion. She enters them from fullness, as a giver of warmth, not a beggar for affection. Her love does not cling, it circulates. It does not drain, it nourishes. Because she no longer offers love to earn worth, she offers it as an overflow of worth already found. When a man meets such a woman, he feels it instantly, that rare stillness that cannot be bought, that quiet joy that does not depend on him. She does not test him, chase him, or mold herself for him. She simply is, and in her being, he rediscovers his own center. She becomes both mirror and invitation, not to possess but to awaken. This is why Carl Jung believed that the meeting of two individuated souls is one of the highest forms of love. Not because they complete each other, but because they can stand beside each other as whole mirrors of the divine. In the language of human psychology, this is called secure attachment, but in the language of the soul, it is sacred union, the balancing of eros and logos, feeling and form, feminine and masculine, river and shore. When these energies intertwine consciously, love ceases to be dependency and becomes destiny. Yet this wholeness is not static. It breathes, it hums, it evolves. Some days it feels like sunlight, other days like dusk. But even in sadness, the whole woman does not collapse. She allows her sorrow to move through her as part of the river she has made peace with. She has learned that to be alive is to be constantly rearranged by love, and that every ending is merely another form of returning to herself. In the Red Book, Jung wrote about the soul as a living being, a presence that grows only when we listen to it. To live from wholeness, then, is to listen deeply, not just to the world, but to the whisper within. It says, "Be still. You are enough. You are always enough." From this place, love becomes spacious. You can hold another's pain without drowning in it. You can celebrate another's joy without shrinking. You can walk beside someone without losing your path, because your roots are no longer in them. They are in the soil of your own being. This is the secret of the feminine soul in union with itself. It is the return to the sacred rhythm of the earth, to give, to rest, to receive, to renew. It is the realization that you're not half of anything. You are a circle, complete, ancient, and alive. And when he looks at you now, he sees it not as performance, but as presence. The light in your eyes does not ask to be kept. It offers to be shared. He may adore you, but he will also respect you, because deep down, he knows he has not found someone to complete him, but someone who reminds him of his own forgotten wholeness. That is the quiet power of the awakened feminine. She becomes the mirror of the universe, reflecting the infinite back into the finite, teaching through her being that love is not something we fall into, but something we become. So, perhaps the real secret was never about how to make him see you as the only choice. Perhaps it was always about remembering that you were never a choice. You were always the source. And in that remembrance, you stop chasing love. You start embodying it. And every soul who crosses your path feels the echo of that truth. The calm, radiant knowing of a woman who has come home to herself. The quiet return home. Sometimes the most powerful transformation doesn't look like fireworks or revelation. It looks like a woman sitting alone in quiet light, no longer waiting, no longer proving, simply being. She has met herself, and in doing so, she has changed everything. Because when a woman returns to her wholeness, she doesn't just heal her heart, she heals the space around her. Her silence softens the noise of those she loves. Her peace becomes permission for others to rest. And her presence, once restless and seeking, now becomes a sanctuary, not to be entered, but to be felt. That is the true power of feminine energy. Not to control, not to impress, but to transform through stillness, to be the mirror in which love remembers itself. So, if this reflection has stirred something within you, a longing to understand your own depths, to see love not as a search, but as an awakening, then let this be your gentle invitation to keep walking, to keep listening, to trust the quiet voice that says, you are already becoming the woman your soul remembers. And when you do, you'll notice that life begins to move differently around you. The right people stay, the wrong ones fade without pain, and love, the kind that doesn't rush or demand, finds its way to you like sunlight through an open window. Because what makes him see you as the only choice was never a secret technique. It was your presence, your truth, your wholeness. If these words resonated with you, take a breath and let them sink beneath thought into that quiet space where your own soul speaks. And when you're ready, join us again for more reflections, more healing, and more journeys back home to yourself. This is Inner Balance Psychology, where we don't chase love, we remember it.